Hello, my name is Annette DeLu, and you are listening to The Heart of You. Today's episode, we are going to be discussing manifestation as it pertains to sacred geometry as well as crystal grids. And maybe any other little tidbits that might be coming out that could be a little bit off topic, but also could be related to everything we're talking about. We're just going to see where it goes. Today we have on the show Barbra May. And Barbara, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending the time. I wanted to first start off with asking you a little bit about your manifestation journey, because I know we've had a little conversation prior to this about some of the magic you have created in your life. So I would like to hear a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I have been manifesting since I was very little, and I didn't know that I was manifesting. So I always kind of thought that I had this supernatural power.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like several strange things. Like I used to go to drama school and I walked into the cafe and there were people sitting in a corner, like the directors, and they were like deciding the game, what they're going to do for the play and etc. and etc. And I walked into the room and I imagined that they picked me and they asked me to be part of that play. And I was like, I don't know why. I just played this game and suddenly one of them came to me and asked me if I want to be a part of it. So I didn't understand. I know. Absolutely fantastic. So I didn't understand how I was doing it. I thought that I was like supernatural. And then obviously I have manifested loads of stuff in my life without knowing that I have a super powerful powers within me. And later in life, I obviously discovered the technique of manifestation and I looked into it and tried to like dive deeper. And I have manifested my marriage, my husband, my house, my podcast, the fact that I'm talking to you right now, I have manifested, and I have manifested all of it very, very, very fast.
Wow, that is super exciting. So let's get started in on the questions to see how you manifested all of those things so quickly. First off, why don't you just tell us, what is sacred geometry?
I now started using the sacred geometry because I work with the energies and I'm obsessed with the energies and how the energies work. And I wanted to understand what was behind it. Everything is made out of sacred geometry. Our DNA is made out of sacred geometry. When these patterns get activated, then the magic will happen and we can activate them with crystals. I started to make crystal grids for energy, for removing headaches, to manifest the house, to manifest love, to manifest new job opportunities, and etc. Yeah, that's where kind of the crystal grids come in. They're very, very, very powerful, but there are certain steps you need to follow. Otherwise, they're not going to work.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you in regards to sacred geometry as well as the crystal grids and how you use crystals, what is it that you do with them as far as anchoring them to the manifestation?
So crystal grids is something what I have started to do recently. So I would say probably about 4 years ago. Always was attracted to crystals before. They have very specific energies. They have very specific characters. They have very specific personalities and things like that. For all those crystal lovers out there, I'm sure that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
When it comes to you utilizing the crystal grids, and because your manifestation powers were already clearly amped up when you were younger, how did it change the energy of your manifestation when you started using the crystal grids?
I think it made it more clear, if that makes sense.
Okay, it does.
I'll just go back and I'll just explain to you. Nobody is able to manifest unless they have the feeling within them. That's why techniques like journaling, gratitude practice, scriptings are very, very powerful because they make us feel. So we manifest by writing, thinking, and feeling. The time when I have manifested at the time, a man who came to my life and proposed to me after 3 months of being in a relationship, I was extremely happy. I was extremely in the right place. I have purchased my first property. I was single at the time. I was enjoying the summer. I had very decent income and I was free. Okay. So freedom for me is a huge soul activation.
Mm.
That was one of the reasons why I was able to manifest everything so fast, right? Because crystals have those specific energies and those specific characters, we can shape things.
Right.
I always say that if you were making a crystal grid, you first need to think about the main stone. So what does the main stone represent? It can represent health, it can represent wealth, it can represent whatever. So you go for the energy, and that will be the title of your book.
Right.
And then you pick crystals, which will be the subtitles. And then you create story around it. So yeah, so just to like go a little bit more specific.
Right. Let's back up just a little bit before you talk about the activation. When it comes to choosing the actual sacred geometry, the actual grid that you're talking about. So I just want to sort of clarify for our listeners that when we talk about a crystal grid, we are talking about it in some sort of pattern within sacred geometry. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a square grid, so to speak. When you go about choosing a particular piece of sacred geometry, how do you go about choosing that first when you're just about to start thinking about making a crystal grid for your manifestations?
So when you are just about to start and you have never done that before, those patterns have their own vibrations, and those vibrations will match your vibration. These frequencies will join together. So for those people who are listening, I will just go online and I will just Google crystal grid or just the grids, sacred geometry grids, and pick the one which you feel most attracted to, and then read what the grid is for. So this is what I would recommend people who just want to start with it. Obviously, I'm more specific with it because now I know what grids I use for what. But definitely that's what I would do first.
And I know that it's the same when it comes to choosing crystals usually. And I did cover that in a previous episode. We talked about, sort of the basics of choosing crystals. And if my listeners out there right now haven't listened to that episode yet, I would recommend after listening to this episode, going back and listening to that crystal episode. It will just give you that sort of basic information as to how to choose a crystal and that sort of thing. When you are choosing crystals just to use for yourself as opposed to in a crystal grid, it is exactly that. You're choosing the crystal that you're most attracted to. That's usually the one that you need the most at that moment. Is it the same with a crystal grid?
Yes, absolutely is. But
Okay.
You have to think that it's not only you who are choosing that crystal.
Right.
Because it's like attracts like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when it comes to crystals, they are charged differently when it comes to the energy. So it's not going to be that if I feel low, I'm going to attract the crystal, which is like low vibration, if that makes sense. And the grids are exactly the same, but you need to have intention. There needs to be intention behind the crystal grid, because what is the point of doing that? So that's why, to go back to what you were saying before, I didn't know what I wanted to manifest. I just wanted to manifest to be in a theatre show. So I manifested to be in a theatre show. I just wanted to buy a new car. So I got a new car. I didn't know what car I want. When do I want that car? So with crystal grids, you can be more specific and you can concentrate on different elements. Like, for example, to enhance the energy. If we have a low energy, there is fantastic crystal, which is a spiral shape, like a snail, right? Crystal grid you can do. And for example, it's like when you think about spinning the water, for example, when you lay the crystal, you never lay it from outside, you lay it from inside to outwards to anchor the energy. So there is just it's a fabulous thing.
Yeah. So the reason why I was asking specifically about the crystals that you would choose is simply because obviously, different crystals have different properties. And so if you are looking to manifest something specific, so let's use a really easy one. You're wanting to manifest a romantic relationship in some way. The first crystal you would go to would be rose quartz, right? But is that necessarily the right crystal for you in that particular grid, right? That's the question.
I wouldn't go for rose quartz. And the reason why is because rose quartz has got a very gentle, loving, kind energy. That is not the love I want to attract. So because that's not the person I am. So if I was going to attract a love relationship, I will be choosing a crystal which is a bit fiery. It does represent the love. It's got the love energy. It is kind, but it's a bit more masculine, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So you're actually not just choosing the general vibration of what it is you're trying to attract, you're actually building the vibration of what you want to attract by choosing the crystals that are the vibration of what you want to have in your life.
Very well said. No, absolutely.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's really amazing. I love talking about this when it comes to looking at it from different angles, simply because I never would have thought of it from that perspective when it comes to creating what you want and choosing the crystals based on that. It's something that I think is really, really valuable. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's like spices. It's like the cooking, you know? You either follow the cooking book and then you get the recipe, but it's never going to be as good as when you experiment a little bit and you add extra spices in it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And then those are the secret ingredients, right? So you've chosen your sacred geometry. You've chosen your grid, what you're sort of attracted to, and now you've chosen your crystals and you know which crystals you want to use. Is there any sort of rule as to how many crystals to use, as to how many different types, or is it completely up to you?
I think the rule is that the crystals have to be placed in a certain position to make the grid. If you want to use extra crystals and have them outside of grid for support and for raising the vibration, that is absolutely fine. You can do that. Some people use crystal grids, which they print out from the internet. I personally using a copper grids because, again, passionate about the energy of copper. Copper is a conductor, and I believe that it's more powerful. So it works for me. That's what I would do. But what is very important is that you need to cleanse the crystals. Like that is
yes,
so important, because the vibration you are going to be creating is not going to be clear. The connection is just going to be disruptive, and you just really want the connection to shoot up, be as clear as possible. So you get what you need.
So I went through various different clearing techniques in that previous episode about crystals. I'm curious as to how you clear your crystals, if you have any other rituals that you do to clear them for the grids.
I would just wash them. Obviously, some crystals you are not allowed to wash, as you know, because they are sensitive to water. But the crystals I work with, I will just wash them. And then obviously I work with selenite, and selenite is self-cleansing crystal. For me, the most powerful is the water, because I'm thinking, like, when you have like a very busy day and if you're drained or something happened to you, the first thing what you want to do is to go and have a shower. And I just feel like that's what I believe in. For me, it's just the proper clearing. I can't use a sage because that smells like a marijuana to me. I cannot stand it, honestly. I'm so suffocating. So some people do that. Yeah, so water. What I have done previously, I have buried my crystals. So I have done that before. I've done this test with a labradorite. I have buried labradorite in the ground.
Okay.
And then I take it out after 21 days. I washed it and I put it under my pillow, and I have the most vivid dreams ever.
Wow.
I like to do that as well, because when you look at labradorite, for those people who don't know, it's a dark stone, and the colors will always only come out when the light is shining. You got one. Oh. And the colors will only come out when the light is shining on it. So if there is anything hidden or anything that didn't come out and you're looking to find out what it was, maybe like a lost memory or maybe solution or something, labradorite is a fantastic stone to sleep with.
Yeah. Indeed. As I was just actually showing Barbara, I have a labradorite pendant that I've been wearing for years, and it's something that I always have on. I've been waiting to see if there's another one that jumps out at me if I need to change it out, but it seems to be pretty steady for me. So that is another thing that you can do when you're wearing your crystals. If there's one that calls to you and that you feel really connected with, then it'll stay with you for as long as you need it. There are a lot of people, as you mentioned, that have a sensitivity to sage. In sort of a substitute, if you do want to use smoke to cleanse your crystals, Palo Santo is another good way to do that because it's a lot more gentle. It's a little less strong than sage. I do use a lot of Palo Santo for that. And how do you feel about sun to clear crystals? I really feel like that's a hard reset on most crystals, and it does work really well. If you're in Paris like I am right now, or if, I know you're in London, it's cloudy skies and it has been for days. So sometimes if you don't have the sun available, you have to come up with different ways to clear the crystals if you're going to do something in the next few days, let's say. When it comes to clearing for crystal grids, and then when you're storing it, would you keep it out of the sun? Would you keep it in a particular place where it cannot be disturbed by various different elements? How do you usually store yours after you've done the entire crystal grid?
I'll be very careful with sun. You're absolutely right. Sun is very powerful and it charges crystals, same way as it charges us. Sun can take the color out of crystals. So, for example, if you have amethyst, which has been exposed to sun, it will lose its color and it will go white. So I will be very careful. What we want to think about over here is we want to think about where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are they exposed to sun? Is that their natural, is that the natural light for them?
Oh, right.
So I would not be using a sun. Obviously, moonlight is one of the things that you can do. When it comes to where would I keep my crystal grid? So for everybody who's listening, animals are strongly attracted to crystals. So be very careful if you have any cats or dogs, because they will happily mess up the crystal grids for you. Also children. And I have this funny story to share. I have done this crystal grid, and it was to attract the house I'm living in right now. And it was beautiful crystal grid. I done everything. I just even put petals around it, And my cleaner came and she took everything off, cleaned the copper board for me so it's not dusty.
Oh, no.
I removed the petals.
Oh, no.
So I know. So be very careful but where you leave your crystal grid, and maybe you might be interested when to do them. And that's one of the reasons why I was very upset that she destroyed it, because we do the crystal grids on a new moon and we take them down on a dark moon. So so I just had to wait another month for the whole thing. It's ritual, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really great to know, and it's good. And I'm sorry that happened to you, but it's good to learn from those experiences that you have, that we can now take a little bit of benefit from. Okay, so if you have a cleaning person, if you have pets, children, anybody that could potentially disturb it, make sure you're keeping it out of that arm's reach from any of those situations. So it's every new moon. So when you talk about dark moon, what is that time frame?
Dark moon is one day before the new moon. So
okay.
That's what you want to do. And obviously you are thinking about beginnings. So you're thinking about new moon, you are beginning, everything is becoming and it's happening and it's growing. And then you're letting it go to do its magic.
So if you have created a manifestation and you have this crystal grid, you've created it, you've set your intentions, everything is just perfect, and you've put it in a place that's out of reach of anybody else and any pets. And so you do this on new moon, and it's until the day before the next new moon, and the manifestation hasn't arrived yet, let's say. Do you keep the crystal grid for another cycle, or does it matter?
I wouldn't, personally.
Okay.
I wouldn't, because the intention has been sent and it will come. It will happen.
Yeah.
I know it will. So I never had an experience that something didn't happen,
Right.
Back to when you were talking about the grids. If we were doing the energy grid to enhance the energy, we wouldn't leave that grid on for the whole month. So the energetic one, we would just leave it under the bed overnight, or 24 hours or 48 hours.
So that's when you're talking about like trying to get rid of a headache or anything else like that, right? And while we're on that topic, so what are some of the other energetic reasons why you would use a crystal grid?
To help obviously with a health problem, manifest, get things moving. When something is stuck, when, for example, somebody's an entrepreneur and they don't have the business, people are not coming in. There is something energetically stuck, so it needs to get moving. So anything what relates to energy.
Okay.
Yeah, health. Yeah.
So if it is in relation to getting something unstuck as opposed to trying to manifest something that you don't have yet. When it comes to actually deciding to start creating your crystal grid, you've got So now you've got everything that you need. We've talked about when to do it and how to protect it and all of that. How do you start constructing your crystal grid?
So firstly, we cleanse the crystals. We have to have an intention, which is the most important thing, because what's the point of doing that if you don't have an intention? So that's like the power. That's the energy
Right.
behind it all. We set up a crystal grid, and when we set it up, what we can do, we can add things like, for example, we can sprinkle a little bit of cayenne pepper on top of it. Cayenne pepper speeds things up. We can put salt around it in a circle. Salt represents protection, so that's another very important thing as well. So it kind of protects our wishes from other people,
Yeah.
We don't talk about our crystal grid, which is another very important thing. And I don't know if you are familiar, I'm sure you are, but I don't know if listeners are familiar with evil eye and etc. So we just don't want the energy to be affected by anything and anyone. It's sacred, right?
Right.
So it's very, so it's something very intimate, I would say. So when we have obviously got the intentions, crystals are cleansed, crystal grid is set, then what we do, we will connect the crystals together, and we can connect them with wand if we want to. We can connect them with our finger. We can connect them with pendulum. So what we're doing, we're just connecting a crystal to a crystal to a crystal to a crystal to a crystal, and then we are sending the intention. And that's pretty much what it is. You can also write a letter to the universe if you want to. There is so much power inside of writing that already gets the feeling even stronger.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also, I think it solidifies the intentions to a place where you don't have to worry that while you were creating your grid, maybe your mind wandered a little bit and you went into a little bit of worry energy or something like that, right? So if you write things down, I imagine that helps you to have a little bit more confidence that it is exactly what you are intending.
Yeah. And at the same time, you're going to think it and you are going to feel it.
Yeah.
So you are ticking all those boxes, which is very important. And then obviously you just let the grid, you can light up a candle. You can choose a color of a candle if you want to. So for example, if we were attracting a partner, we will choose the love color candle, pink, red, whatever, passion. If we were removing something, we will go for black. If we wanted to add a bit of spice to the life and just a bit of excitement, we'll go for green. And then so you can work with colors. Just all you need to think about is that everything has got its own energy, its own energy, its own character, its own personality, and you can invite all those energies into your little place. But what I always say with crystal grids, because I get asked, oh well, what about if I set it up the way how I want to, the way how I feel it? And I don't think that's the right way of doing that, because is it within the sacred geometry, or is it not?
Right.
So yeah.
Also, you have to consider how harmonious the crystals are with each other, how harmonious the sacred geometry is with the crystals. And so I have this beautiful book that's sort of like the little crystal Bible, and it'll tell you which crystals harmonize well with that particular crystal and which crystals are complements to that crystal that will amplify the energy and things like that. So there are things like that to consider if you decide to, let's say, go off on your own and kind of go rogue and do this whole thing on your own. You have to consider all of those factors. Now, I do want to back up a little bit because you did mention the evil eye. And I would like you to actually go a little bit into that, because we're talking about other people's energy having an effect on our manifestation, on our intention for the crystal grid. So can you tell me a little bit about how that could have an effect on what you're trying to manifest?
I think it's not only on manifestation. I think it's in general. I think that we are very strong energetic beings and we can be radioactive.
Yeah.
Very easily. And for example, with my children, I never post pictures of my children online. And I don't do that because I'm worried somebody will kidnap them. But I just don't want people thinking about them. How much power is behind the thought?
Right.
So that's why that is something that is very sacred to me. And it comes to the wishes, like everybody says, oh, I have a job interview. I'm not going to talk about it just in case it doesn't happen. And when you don't talk about it, when you don't tell anybody, then you're your dream is protected and it's not going to be affected by other people. And it can be anything. People can just think, just like,
right.
Why would she get that job? Why is she like, she doesn't even have the right education. And those thoughts are they're not aggressive. We
Right.
all have it within us, you know? So, yeah. So I think it's very, very, very important because you don't want to have that on you.
Right. I don't think that we've discussed this before on the podcast yet, but I think this is a good time to sort of bring it up, is that what Barbara is speaking of is a bit of energetic cords. So people can actually attach energetic cords to you when they are putting those sort of thoughts or repeated belief systems upon you. So, of course, sometimes we have to clear those energetic cords from our parents and from our family and from people we interact with on an absolute regular basis. And people that we've known for a really long time would have a sort of a stronger attachment, energetic cord wise, to you. And that's why I often recommend people to, clear the cords as they can, as often as they can, so it keeps your energy pure. And what you're talking about, Barbara, is actually just having even people in passing. So if I were to tell you as a friend about something that I'm manifesting, and then let's say you have a judgment about that, that judgment is being put into that manifestation. So that's kind of what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just have a question?
Yeah.
How do you remove those attachments? How would you remove them?
Typically what I do is I'll do a body scan. And so I'll just start at the top of my head with some divine light energy, and I'll just start going down, and if I start feeling something, I will imagine my guardian angels helping me to remove that cord safely, to fill it with golden creator substance, whatever, if it's crystalline light, whatever it happens to call for at that moment. And then once I scan the whole body and remove all the cords that need to be removed, then obviously you have to sort of purify and drink a lot of water and things like that. That's usually the longer version. The short version is like right before I go to bed. If I forget I'll simply be sitting at the edge of my bed or something, and I'll be like, oh, wait, I forgot to do my cord cutting today. So I'll just, thank my guardian angels, thank the universe for cutting any and all cords of energy that have been attached to me today throughout any of my experiences. Thank you for keeping only the experience intact and removing any energy that does not belong to me. And that's just something I simply say if I forget to do cord cutting. And I don't do it every day. Typically I do cord cutting maybe once every couple of weeks, unless it's been a pretty heavy, emotionally charged type situation. For example, if you were, for the holidays, if you were spending time with family, that might be a time where you might want to do it a little bit more often in order to kind of cut those cords. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very important to mention because not many people know, do they?
No. And it's interesting. It allows you to keep your emotions yours, because a lot of times we're reacting out of things that are not ours. So if a friend is having some sort of crisis and they've just been bitching to you for the last 3 hours, and then you come home and you feel like crap, well, that's because it's not your energy. It's your friend's energy who has just been, complaining about something for 3 hours, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I know we got a little bit off topic there, but the energy clearing, the cord cutting is always an important topic to cover. Let's get back to the crystal grids. So before we started the podcast, you were telling me some stories about how effective the crystal grids were and how one of your friends really got a large sum of money after doing one of these crystal grids. So go ahead and tell us about that and a little bit about your experience of how to go about creating abundance with these crystal grids.
Yeah, I have done this for my friend, and I told you, I think when we talked last time, 300,000 they got.
It's incredible.
And next day, straight after. But again, this is what I mean. It's all about you are not doing the crystal grid like now, like, oh, I can't pay my bills, so now I'm going to manifest 1 million. No, you have to go with it. So I am, for example, now I want to manifest more podcast listeners. Do you know what I mean? Like another 200 a week or something, and that's what I want. But it's within the, I am doing a podcast already, I have got a successful podcast. I want it to be more successful podcast, but I need a little kick. So I just get the crystals to give me a little kick. So.
Right. So would you be able to do that within the crystal grid within the one cycle? Meaning that I often talk about with manifestation, which is exactly what you're discussing right now, is the short, mid, and long term, right? For example, you're talking about the podcast. So you already have a podcast. You want, let's say, 200 more listeners in the next however much amount of time. And then let's say if you want to talk about in the next year, you want to reach X amount of listeners. And by no particular time frame, the big goal is to have this many listeners, 1 million or 3 million or however many. Within one crystal grid, can you do that sort of short, mid, and long term manifestation?
I wouldn't. I just would be very specific. I'm
Okay.
sure you can, but I just think that those energies are so gentle that you just want to keep it as clean and clear as possible.
Okay.
Because you want, so I have manifested something last year for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the podcast, and it was the downloads and etc. And I am about 50 more downloads to get to my target.
Beautiful.
What I manifested from last year.
Oh, congratulations.
But, we'll just have to be kind of realistic there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, with crystal, you can just be so specific because you have those spices, they all have those specific tastes, and you can create something absolutely fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much do you ask for and be specific about versus what is the universe giving you that is potentially better than anything you could possibly think of? Because that's the one thing that is always that sort of balancing act that you have to have in regards to manifesting, because if you want to manifest something specific, but yet the universe knows that there's something way better out there for you, and you're not aware of it. It's not even in your vision yet. How would you sort of manage that when you're being so specific about crystal grids?
I know exactly what I want.
Yeah.
So there is another aspect of getting things without manifesting. We ask for them. I have recently had something which I cannot share what I got because I don't want to share it publicly, but I have been very stressed because I needed to get something, and I was literally 3 days to a deadline, and it was impossible for me to get it because nobody can get it, nobody can sort it out. And I was like, I don't smoke, but I was so stressed that I've been smoking, and it's just like very, 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 very tense, need anything. And I sat down on my bed, closed my eyes, and I said, please help me.
Yeah.
I really need this. I'm asking for this. I really, really need this. I cannot carry on like this anymore. I have received a message from a friend I haven't spoken to for 12 years. Just, hey babes, how are you doing? And I responded, and she says, oh, I heard you're doing some readings. And I was like, yeah, I do. And she says, oh, I do it as well. I says, do a spot swap. She says, yes. I said, let's talk tomorrow. I can't do tomorrow. Let's talk now. Rang her. She rang me. We spoke. Within 5 minutes, she sorted the whole problem out for me. Person I haven't spoken to for 12 years contacted me out of blue. And so this is what I'm saying. So if there are people out there who really, really, really want to manifest something, and they really, really, really need it, and they know they need it when it's a house or when it's the children, people who struggle with infertility, you can always ask. You're not going to get if you're not going to ask, and they are there. The angels are there. They work, and they will do it for you.
Yeah. It's really a good way to look at things, because obviously in that situation, when you were going through a period of time where you were really struggling, that was not a situation in which you could wait until the new moon to create your crystal grid to make things happen, right? Like that's a very urgent situation.
And also, the most important thing over here is that when you struggle, you're vibrating a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So no matter what you're going to do, you are not going to attract these manifesting powers. You don't even want to manifest. You don't even want to do crystals. You don't even want to do anything like that because you're so low.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to get the pick me up from that low vibration. So so this is a good tip. Ask.
Not only ask for help, but also ask your angels to send you the people that need to be in your life to help you through this. That is key because that's exactly what happened to you when your friend called you, and the angels were like, "Yep, okay, she needs somebody to come in and really kind of pull her out of whatever it is that you were going through," right? Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. I would say that in that respect, crystal grids are really great when you know exactly what you want, you have time, it's not something that's super urgent, and that's the one thing I think is hard for people sometimes is that what do you want? That question, what do you want? And when you ask people that question, a lot of times they really have to pause and say, "Oh, well, I don't really know." So that's a really good question, I guess, to ask yourself first before you even get started with any of this is to say, "Okay, what do I want truly?" And it's not what I feel like my parents want for me. It's not what I feel like society wants for me. It is truly in your heart what it is that you want. Yeah. So, when it comes to your most exciting manifestation that you've ever created through a crystal grid, can you tell us a little bit about that particular situation?
Hmm. So with a crystal grid, it was the house I'm living in right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the house. So I have designed the house in a crystal grid. So the house will have exactly the energies in it, within it, around it, as I had on a crystal grid. And again, the property. Been looking at property, walks into the property, looks around the property. Is that okay? This is my property, and they gave the property to somebody else. And I felt for 2 months, I was like, it's not theirs, it's my property. And I just felt it, and I have done the crystal grid 3 months in a row, the same one.
Okay.
And then we received a phone call saying that the buyers pulled out and we can have the property. So
Wow. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's incredible. And that is actually a beautiful story about not paying attention to what is going on in the 3D world in regards to manifestation. Because that is so super important because you could have focused on the fact that, oh, there somebody else has the house and I'm not going to get it, and you could have just given up and energetically felt defeated about not being able to have this manifestation that you wanted. But instead, clearly you just continued on and it completely worked out.
yeah, yeah. No, it was really, really good.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the beautiful partnership that you have with Maria, and it's called Mystic Sisters, yes. And I would
Yeah.
like you to sort of tell us a little bit about what you and Maria are creating together.
So Maria and I have we known each other for quite some time, and we have decided that we're going to create this modern mystic club.
Beautiful.
But it's something which is full of modern mysticism, and it just brings people together. We have a podcast which is going to be launched on the 1st of April. We have a membership, very affordable membership. I'm very passionate about energies, as I said a million times on the podcast. And I want to teach people. I want people to be aware of it, but not that you come to a class and you're going to pay £300 for it. But that's something what you kind of get the spiritual guidance and the spiritual therapy and readings. Maria is extremely talented at her readings, and that's what she's going to be doing. And we're doing events, already got a few events lined up, some clubs, and providing wellness programs. So kind of getting the modern mysticism out of the box, if that makes sense, and
It does, yeah.
so yeah, and making it available for everybody.
So then how would people be able to get information about Mystic Sisters?
So we have a website, www.wearemysticsisters.com. You can find out there. The new website or the updated version of the website is going to come out with a launch. So that's going to be the 1st of April, but we do have a page set up already. Then you can follow us on Instagram, which is at We Are Mystic Sisters. For the first 100 people who will follow us and sign up to our newsletter, will get a free first month membership, access to a free workshop, and so much more exciting stuff. Yeah, and then we are on Facebook, and we're gonna be on YouTube, and it's just so exciting.
That's so incredible. I cannot wait. What is your contact information? How can people contact you for sessions and readings?
Mm-hmm. So my website is www.barbramay.com. Barbara is spelled Barbra. And I'm on Instagram, which is @BarbraMay_, or you can reach out to me through Mystic Sisters.
In addition, Barbra May also has a podcast that is absolutely incredible, which is the Barbra May Show, Barbra, Barbra May Show. And I have already listened to a bunch of the episodes, and it's fantastic. It really is.
Thank you so much. And you could have it on there very soon as well.
Indeed, yes. I will be talking about the Akashic Records with Barbara very soon. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been an incredible discussion about how to anchor in some of your manifestations, really dialing down into what you really want out of this life and helping you understand the properties of sacred geometry as well as crystal grids. Thank you, Barbara, for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to walking this journey with you and pointing the way on your spiritual journey. If you are interested in learning more about me and the sessions that I do, feel free to go to my website at infinitesoullove.com. On all social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Infinite Soul Love 1111. Hey, and if you feel called, I would love it if you could rate The Heart of You on whatever streaming service you're using, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please take a moment, give it a review. It really does help the channel. Thanks so much.